Hello, and welcome to this week's Nutrition Diva podcast. I'm your host, Monica Reinagel, and I'm so glad to have you with us for this week's conversation, which is about protein and bone health. Eli writes, ever since my wife heard your episode on the benefits of protein from preventing muscle loss as you get older, she's been eating more eggs, meat, and fish, especially at breakfast and lunch. But doesn't a high-protein diet weaken your bones? Do we have to choose between strong muscles and strong bones once we get past middle age? Actually, Eli, it's just the opposite. Protein contributes to strong muscles and strong bones. The concern about protein and bone health might stem from the fact that when you increase your protein intake, especially from animal sources, the amount of calcium in your urine goes up. And the assumption has always been that this urinary calcium was being taken from the bones in order to buffer the acid residue that remains after you digest meat and other animal products. And I talked a little bit about that whole acid buffering thing in my episode on pH balancing diets. Now, obviously, if something you are eating is regularly causing the calcium to leach out of your bones and into the toilet, over time, this is going to be very bad news for your bones. However, this is not at all what is happening here. As I've talked about in previous episodes, only a fraction of the calcium from the foods that you eat is actually absorbed by your body. You might absorb as little as 5% of the calcium in spinach, or as much as 60% of the calcium in your broccoli. But most of the calcium in the foods that you eat passes through your system unabsorbed. Now, when you increase your protein intake, something very interesting happens. Your body starts absorbing a lot more calcium from your food. It turns out that almost all of the extra calcium that ends up in your urine when you increase your protein intake is due to increased intestinal absorption of calcium. Very little of that is coming from your bones. And this probably explains why people who have higher protein diets do not, in fact, have higher fracture rates or lower bone mineral density. There's some brand new research on this that I'd like to share with you. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, HelloFresh. Whether you're a busy professional couple or a large family that's running in a million different directions, or just somebody who wants to start cooking more, HelloFresh can make it easier, tastier, and healthier than ever to enjoy the experience of cooking new recipes and eating together at home. From creating the recipes and planning the meals for you, to grocery shopping and even delivering the freshest ingredients already pre-measured for your recipe, HelloFresh is for everyone from novices to seasoned home cooks who are just short on time. You can choose from their classic boxes, veggie boxes, and family boxes, and you decide whether you want 3, 4, or 5 different meals per week, and you can have them serve either 2 or 4 people. In my experience, the portions are so large, we always end up with leftovers. New recipes are created every week, and they have 2 full-time registered dietitians on staff who review every recipe to ensure that it's nutritionally balanced. For $30 off your first week of deliveries, visit HelloFresh.com and enter Diva30 when you subscribe. That's HelloFresh.com and promo code Diva30 to save $30. And now back to our discussion of the role that protein plays in building stronger bones. As I said, there's some new research to share. Just this month, a group of researchers from Harvard published data from more than 100,000 men and women that they were following over the course of more than 30 years. Among the men, the risk of fracture went down as protein intake from any source went up. It was a little different for the women. Among the women, the total protein intake didn't seem to affect their fracture risk positively or negatively, but higher intakes of plant-based and dairy proteins reduced the risk of hip fracture. Earlier this year, a different group of researchers assessed a group of 750 women who were all in their 60s, and they found that higher protein intakes were associated with increased bone strength. And most recently, researchers who were writing in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition compiled the results from 36 different studies looking at the effect of protein intake on bone health. And this meta-analysis, as it's called, also found no evidence that higher protein diets endanger bones, and some evidence that higher protein diets actually protect against bone loss. A diet that's too low in protein actually appears to be a much bigger threat to your bone health than one that's higher in protein. So how much do you need? Well, the recommended daily allowance for protein is 50 grams per day. However, there's a growing chorus of scientists calling for increasing that recommendation to 75 or even 100 grams per day in light of recent evidence, especially for people over 50. The good news is that most Americans are already getting somewhere between 75 and 100 grams of protein per day. And as I talked about in another recent show, you can get more benefit from your protein without actually increasing the amount of protein that you're eating, simply by spreading it out more evenly throughout the day, rather than eating most of it at dinner time, as many of us are prone to do. Of course, there are a lot of things besides protein that affect your bone health. In addition to adequate protein, healthy bones require a variety of vitamins and minerals, including vitamin D and vitamin K, calcium, of course, magnesium, and many others. And that's why my nutrition prescription for healthy bones isn't just about getting more protein or getting more calcium, but also encourages you to eat plenty of vegetables. And because vitamin D is not terribly well distributed in the food supply, a vitamin D supplement may also be a good idea. Remember that exercise also plays an important role in bone health in two important ways. First, strong muscles help to maintain strong bones. So strength training exercises with weight machines, stretchy bands, free weights, or even those exercises that use your own body weight can help to maintain muscle strength and bone health throughout your life. And secondly, impact also helps strengthen your bones. Now, just walking will give your bones some low-impact stimulation, but if you can manage a bit of jogging, jumping, bouncing, or other higher-impact activities, so much the better. If you need some advice on getting fit at any age, my Quick and Dirty Tips colleague Ben Greenfield has it all covered in his Get Fit Guy podcast. And you can find both of our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Overcast, or wherever you enjoy podcasts. And if you enjoyed the show, do us a favor and leave a review there. There's a complete transcript of today's show, including links to all of those research studies that I mentioned and to the related podcast episodes I mentioned. And that's on our website at quickanddirtytips.com. And you can post your comments there or on the Nutrition Diva Facebook page. I look forward to hearing from you. And now have a great week, and remember to eat something good for me.